Hi there. Within this section, I will show you how to study relationships occurring among your data, both with summary statistics and data visualization tools. This is a really important step when doing EDA for modeling purposes, since the relationships you find in your data can be used to define how to model them and can also suggest data that should be excluded because of too strong relationships with others. The most relevant statistics when dealing with the relationships among data is correlation. Correlation is a measure of how much the variation in a set of data is associated to the variation in another set of data. Take, for instance, those two short series of numbers. Even if we don't have a formal definition of correlation, we can see here that when the series on the left increases, also the one on the right does the same thing. The same holds true for the opposite. When the series decreases, they do so together. This phenomenon is described as positive correlation. Let's have a look now at these other two series of numbers. You can see here the opposite phenomenon. When the series on the left increases, the one on the right decreases. This is described as a negative correlation. There are different mathematical descriptions of this relation. We are going to learn here two of the most famous ones, the Pearson Coefficient and the distance correlation. Pearson Coefficient tries to measure if a linear relationship is observable within data. What does it mean to observe a linear relationship? To put it simply, it means to find a relationship that can be described by a straight line. Let's start with the set of data we have seen before. We can try to plot this on a Cartesian set of axes, marking the value of the left series on the x and the one of the right series on the y. This basic representation is already able to confirm our idea of a strong association between the two series. But how strong the relationship here? Is it more or less strong than the relationship we can observe among other comparable data? Pearson correlation tries to answer this question. To do this, it fits a straight line through the data and measure how far the observed points are from this line. We are not going to enter here into mathematical notation, but you should just retain from this description that Pearson coefficient works with the linear relationship. This means that a strong Pearson correlation means a strong linear relationship among considered variables. But what if the relationship is not linear? Well, the sad truth is that Pearson statistics is not able to detect relationship different from linear. And that is why we are going to use also distance correlation, which tries to overcome this problem looking for relationships different from linear. Even if Pearson only looks for linear relationship, you should take it into serious consideration, since in the vast majority of cases, you will find the linear relationship being a good enough approximation of the real relationship, and therefore you will find the Pearson coefficient employed to describe it. Before actually moving to distance correlation, let's focus on the interpretation of this coefficient. Pearson coefficient can vary from -1 to 1, with the following meaning. -1 marks the strongest possible negative correlation. 0 means that no linear correlation was observed among data. 1 means that the strongest possible correlation was observed, meaning that the fitted straight line perfectly describes the observed data. As you may be guessing, all the values in between 0, 1 and -1 are to be considered as gradations of the phenomenon described by extremes ones. We can now move to the distance correlation, which is an attempt to overcome the shortcomings observed with the Pearson correlation. To properly understand its mathematical formulation, we should resort to the concept of centered covariance, which is far out the scope of this course. We can nevertheless keep it to the intuition level, saying that while the Pearson coefficient is able to measure the strength of the linear relationship among two variables, the distance correlation can measure the strength of this relationship without taking into consideration any previous assumption about its functional form. Let's now see how all of these apply on an hypothetical set of data. What would you say about these data? Is there any relationship among them? Well, I guess there is some relationship, because it seems that the behavior of A strongly influenced the behavior of B. But what about its functional form? Is it linear? No, we can safely say it is not linear. So, let's try to compute both the Pearson coefficient and the distance correlation on those data. It turns out that the Pearson coefficient on them is equal to 0.017, which is really not that high. This means that Pearson coefficient can detect on this data only a really light and almost insignificant correlation. Let's try now to compute the distance correlation. Well, distance correlation for these data, the same data, results equal to 0.5, which is a way higher correlation. Looking at data, it's easy to see how distance correlation in this case is better able to describe the real relationship going on among data. As a final note, we should say that, as the Pearson coefficient does, also this coefficient, the distance correlation, ranges from -1 to 1, with exactly the same meaning we have discussed regarding Pearson. It's now time to see how all of this applies to our data through the R language. It is actually easy to compute correlation with R, also considering more than one couple of variables at a time. To do this, we can use the core function, which accepts as arguments entire data frames of more than 2 columns and compute correlation among all of the attributes within these columns. First of all, we just need to select among our data the numerical ones, since Pearson correlation can be computed on this data. To be honest, you could also transform categorical data into dummy variable, assuming the variable are 0 or 1, with the so-called one-hot encoding, and then apply Pearson correlation with some further caveat on this data, but we are not going to see this here. So, let's try to select the numerical variables and assign this new object named the numeric portfolio. All we have to do now is to apply the core function on this object. We are going to specify the method we are going to use for correlation, just to let you know that the core function comes with different alternative methods, which can be selected through the method argument. Would you be interested into discovering more about this method? You just have to look into the help related to this function. And here it is the result, which is called a correlation matrix. Let's try to understand this matrix. As you can see, you have the same variables repeated as rows and columns headers. This is because all of them are matched into pairs with the others, and for each pair, the Pearson coefficient is calculated. A simple logical check when looking at correlation matrix is to check the diagonal, where you should always find 1, as it is in this case. Why? Because at the diagonal, the correlation coefficient of each variable with itself is calculated. As for instance here, we have the correlation coefficient calculated between PD and PD. And so by definition, this is equal to 1. Let's now look at something more interesting. For instance, we can observe a quite high correlation among the number of non-defaulted obligors and the amount of non-defaulted exposures. This is coherent with our expectations since, having all other conditions unchanged, having a higher number of non-defaulted obligors should translate in having a high number amount of non-defaulted exposure. Another interesting insight that comes from the analysis of these metrics is the relevant negative correlation among probability of default and the amount of defaulted exposures. Why is this interesting? Because the probability of default depends from the number of counterparts defaulted rather than their exposure. So, this almost null correlation can be seen as a confirmation of the general coherence of what we are observing. But enough with correlation metrics. Let's move to the distance correlation. To compute and calculate distance correlation, we have to use a function provided from an additional package, named energy. Once you're done installing the package and loading it, you can calculate distance correlation using the dcore function. Let's load the package. Differently from the core function, there is no way here to pass a whole set of variables to this function, but you rather need to calculate the statistics on each couple of variables you are interested in. Let's do this for the non-defaulted obligors and exposures non-defaulted, to see if the strong relationship suggested from linear correlation is confirmed. Yes, we have here nearly 73%, which is definitely a strong correlation, able to confirm us what we were saying before looking at linear correlation. Now that you have a practical understanding of what correlation is, we can ask ourselves a simple question. What should we use correlation for? You know that I always try to let you resonate about the rationale behind what we see and what we do in this course. So let's try to understand why it is important for you to own this tool within your toolbox. There are at least 3 relevant uses of correlation when doing exploratory data analysis and subsequent data mining activities. First of all, performing consistency checks of our data internal coherence, looking to the reasonableness of relationship highlighted from correlation coefficients. It could be the case that strange and unrealistic relationships are found, and this should let you deeply assess the soundness of the data feeding process and maybe the data quality you have in your dataset. Another reason why could be getting insights from data, as we have done before, to make a sense of our data and discover which possible causal relationships are going on. We will get back later to the relationship between correlation and causation, but for now, you should notice that analyzing correlation could be a good way to decide which variable employ as an explanatory variable. Let's say, for instance, you want to model the number of non-defaulted exposure. In this case, trying to use the number of non-defaulted obligors could be a good idea, given the strong correlation we can observe among the two of them. As a third reason, there is the exclusion of variables. There are some models, like for instance linear regression, very sensitive to the presence of explanatory variables strongly correlated among themselves. Those models tend to produce unreliable results if this kind of variables are included. This phenomenon is called multicollinearity. To avoid the problem, you should therefore perform previous correlation analysis to see if some of the variables you have gathered into your dataset should be excluded or transformed conveniently. For instance, you could create a new variable being a combination of the two that resulted being highly correlated themselves. I hope you are now convinced that investing nearly 10 of your life's minutes to learn about correlation was worth it. Now that you have completed this video, you are able to understand the concept of correlation, both linear and non-linear, and you know when and how to use this concept to support your analysis. And, as usual, you also know how to do this with our language.